You are listening to Housekeepers Chat by the United States Department of Agriculture from 1927. Disclaimer: this is read from a historic archive document. Do not assume content reflects current scientific knowledge, policies, or practices. This broadcast was aired on Thursday, the 10th of March of 1927.
Wholesome meals for children and a dinner menu for the whole family, approved by the United States Bureau of Home Economics.
The other day, writes a mother from Illinois, you discussed the preparation of school box lunches. But what about lunches for children who come home at noon? I have 3 children, ranging in age from 8 to 12, who descend upon me promptly at 12:15, simply starving. I am very busy during the mornings, and since my husband does not come home for lunch, I am apt to slight the noon meal. Suggestions on well-balanced home lunches would be appreciated. Very well, let's see what we can do for the mother whose youngsters come home at noon. The fact that they are simply starving when they come home simplifies matters. Children who have good appetites are easily pleased with plain and wholesome food. The noon meal prepared for the ordinary family is usually suitable for school children. The first course of meat and vegetables, if simply cooked and not highly seasoned, contains nothing that can't be given to children of school age. Vegetables cooked in their own juices or in water and seasoned with salt and a little butter or cream are easy to prepare. Served with a little meat gravy, they are sure to please. The dessert course of an ordinary dinner is just as good for children as for grown persons, unless it consists of rich pastries or puddings. Rich desserts may lead to overeating. Suitable desserts are fruit, fresh or cooked, with cake, custards and custard puddings, gelatin dishes, cereal puddings, simple ices, blancmange, and junket. Many children who dislike milk will take it in the form of junket. It's particularly good when flavored with caramel or maple syrup, boiled down. Many times when children live far from school, the noon meal must be eaten in such a hurry that the food is almost literally swallowed whole. If the time for the meal is limited, it should be served promptly and in such a way that there are no unnecessary delays. The meat, for instance, may be sliced before it is brought to the table. The dessert may be served in cups or individual portions. I read an article not long ago on lunches which the busy mother might prepare with little work. I'm going to read a paragraph from the article. If you plan wisely, you can have a hot lunch without having to spend much time in preparation at the last minute. It should be a hot lunch for active youngsters running back and forth to school, need a hearty meal at noon. You can, for instance, cook enough vegetables for dinner the night before to have a cupful or more left over. For lunch, cook them down again after breakfast with a little water, press them through a sieve, and add enough milk to make a delicious cream soup. Reheat over hot water at lunchtime. Or make individual dishes of scalloped vegetables with a little white sauce and a sprinkling of cheese on top. Set in the refrigerator until almost time for lunch. Then slip into the oven long enough to heat through thoroughly and melt the cheese. Another way to prepare them is to marinate them in French dressing and serve as salad on lettuce with mayonnaise. Try to get some green vegetables into the noon meal and the equivalent of at least 1 glass of milk. The United States Bureau of Home Economics has prepared a list of bills of fare suitable for home lunches for children. These lunches are only typical, and many others just as good might be given. Write them down, if you like. Lunch number 1, eggs, boiled, coddled, poached, or scrambled, bread and butter, spinach or other greens, plain cake. Number 2, beef stew with vegetables, crisp thin biscuits, honey. Number 3, potato chowder, crackers, sliced oranges, plain cookies. Number 4, cold meat, creamed potatoes, peas, bread and butter, applesauce, plain cake. Number 5, milk toast, string beans, stewed apricots and prunes, cake. Number 6, lamb chop, baked potatoes, bread and butter, cup custard. That's a long answer to one question, isn't it? Not too long, however, when one considers the importance of proper food for growing children. Poor nutrition in childhood may lead to poorly developed bodies, weakened constitutions, bad teeth, constipation, indigestion, and many other ailments of adult life. Besides the right kind of food, growing children must have fresh air, sunshine or cod liver oil, exercise, and rest. Today's dinner menu is one planned for the whole family, with the children particularly in mind. As a matter of fact, what's good for growing children is usually pretty good for the grown-ups, too. The menu is broiled meat cakes, tomatoes stewed with celery, mashed potatoes browned in the oven, whole wheat or graham bread and butter, caramel custard with plain cookies or sweet crackers, and milk to drink, at least for the children. For the broiled meat cakes for a family of 5, you will need about 1.5 pounds of lean beef. Many persons prefer the round for meat cakes, but lean meat from the less expensive cuts, such as steaks from the forequarter, is satisfactory. Have the meat ground twice. Various kinds of seasonings may, of course, be added, but for children, the meat itself with melted butter and salt added just before serving gives flavor enough. If you have an abundance of eggs, a yolk or 2 added to the meat gives a richer flavor and increases the food value. This is not at all necessary, however, and excellent meat cakes can be made by simply shaping the finely ground beef into rather flat cakes and broiling them quickly in a pan, rubbed with just enough suet to keep them from sticking, or broiled under a gas flame or over hot coals. In forming the cakes, be sure not to pack the meat together too firmly, for this will make the cakes hard when they are cooked. Be sure also not to overcook the cakes. If they are rare inside when served, they will have more flavor and juice. For very small children, scraped beef is better than ground beef. This is generally prepared by scraping off the more tender part of a thick piece of round steak. This scraped meat may then be formed into cakes and broiled, or broiled on bread in the following way. Toast the bread on one side. Spread the meat thinly on the untoasted side. Sprinkle very lightly with salt. Dot the meat with butter and broil quickly for a very few minutes directly under a gas flame. In preparing the stewed tomatoes and celery, cook them until they are thick enough to serve right on the plate with the meat cakes. The celery should, of course, be chopped before it is added to the tomatoes. A few drops of onion juice will tone up the flavor. After the potatoes are mashed and seasoned, beat them until they are light. Add 1 or 2 well-beaten egg whites if you prefer, and put the potatoes into a greased baking dish and brown the top in a hot oven. Caramel custard is made like any other custard, either baked or boiled, except that caramelized sugar is used in place of ordinary sugar for sweetening. Sugar can be caramelized easily by placing it in a heavy skillet over slow, even heat and stirring it constantly until it melts and becomes a heavy brown syrup. As soon as it reaches this stage, take it from the fire at once and use it for flavoring and sweetening the custard. If you like a stronger caramel flavor, pour some of the caramel syrup over the custard when it is served. Once more, the menu: broiled meat cakes, tomatoes stewed with celery, mashed potatoes browned in the oven, whole wheat or graham bread and butter, caramel custard with plain cookies or sweet crackers, and milk, the indispensable beverage for children. If you'd like to have more information on planning meals for children, write to me. Perhaps I can send you some reliable information which will make your task less arduous. Tell me how old your children are and whether they take lunches to school or eat 3 meals at home. And don't forget the cheering news I broadcast yesterday. Another supplement of the radio cookbook, pages 60 to 101 inclusive, are almost ready to join their sister pages between the roan-colored covers of the cookbook.
This broadcast was researched and produced by BreakAway Empire LLC.